ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਆਪਣੀ Sonia West. Welcome to Sanjha Galbaat. Today in the studio we have Shenan Charania and he is going to talk to us about a lot of different things and specifically about how he turned his life completely around. So welcome to the studio, Shenan.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So when I talk about you change your life completely, I know our viewers are thinking, change his life, like what does that mean? Specifically, you went from one end to the other of being from, I guess, the good to bad scale. And I know that sounds harsh, but please elaborate on what that means. Where are you at right now?
Sure. So currently I work as a life coach. I have my own business working as a coach / consultant.
Okay.
I've been doing that for about 9.5 years now.
Okay.
I love it. It's very fulfilling, extremely rewarding, challenging and creative. You know, all the ingredients somebody's looking for in their work, I found it here.
Yeah.
So I'm extremely blessed to find that.
Would you say that you are helping people? Would that be fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I help people become more conscious. You know,
Okay.
what unconscious patterns are running the show, what unconscious beliefs are running the show.
Right.
And as each one is tapped and becomes more conscious,
Yeah.
that person can drop it. Like they can clearly see this is not serving me. Why am I doing this?
Right.
So it's sometimes people confuse that with therapy, right? Like, oh, are we digging into somebody and why they're doing something?
Okay.
The difference is between therapy and coaching. Therapy wants to try and help you figure out why you're doing something.
Okay.
Coaching just wants you to move forward.
Right.
Why are you not moving forward? Oh, here's an unconscious belief. Where did it come from? It doesn't matter. Drop it and move forward.
Okay.
You know,
so you're
so that's
guiding them
yes.
to improving their lives.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where you're at these days.
Correct.
So the reason I brought that up is because I want our viewers to see, look at, he's a very handsome, very well put together person, seems to be helping people to move forward in the right possible way, very positive. So now tell our viewers about your past and start with the most negative, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the most tame, but okay.
No, start with I want you to start with the
brutal,
shocking one,
right.
because I like usually we speak in Punjabi on this channel, but
Mm-hmm.
you know you were saying that Punjabi is you're not comfortable speaking Punjabi. We'll teach you slowly one of these days.
Thank you.
But we'll provide some subtitles so that our viewers can
Sure.
understand. But yeah, tell me about the most negative, ugliest story, please.
Right. So I'll tell you how it started, right?
Yeah.
Because I've got really good insight as I got hired coaches and they helped me look within myself more. So I was born in Kenya
Okay.
and immigrated with my parents and my older brother here to Canada, as Kenya is a third world country and it was extremely difficult there. So my parents obviously thought, you know what, we've lived a difficult life there. We don't want that for our offspring.
Mm-hmm.
Let's save up and build up the courage and go to a first world country and we'll
Make
give
a
her
better life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So me and my older brother were brought here. I was 11 at that time.
Okay.
So I was just preteen, entering teens. I've got my own challenges of puberty going on.
Yeah.
And now I felt like I was facing this culture shock as well.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So when I arrived here, I got bullied a lot. And back then, this was 93, I was in Burnaby, and I remember going to a school that was about 500 students in it, this elementary school.
Yeah.
There's 2 to 4 brown kids.
Right.
Now it's opposite. There's 2 to
Yeah.
4 white kids
That's
in every
true.
elementary
It's
school, you know.
changed. That's true.
But back then I was bullied for being brown. I was bullied for the way I talked and the way I dressed because it was all Kenyan influenced,
Right.
not Canadian influenced.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do with that. I'd never gotten bullied. So first thing I faced was a lack of self-esteem immediately,
Right.
you know. And then I started really questioning myself because the logic that was running through my head was, people don't like me, and there must be something unlikable about me. I mean, that's what makes sense.
Yeah.
So
You were
I
11 at the time.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I started disliking myself. And that's when things start, right? Like when you don't think much of yourself, what is it you're projecting out and how is that pouring over, cascading into your behavior?
Okay.
Clearly, it's if you like yourself, same thing. It's going to be positive. If you don't like yourself, it's going to be negative. And so as I got bullied a lot, at one point I just didn't know what to do, and I started fighting back because I was just sick of it.
Okay.
And as I fought back, I realized that some people respected that. And so I
So
said,
you're
"Ooh."
getting in physical fights.
Yes, absolutely. Because
Okay.
I was getting physically bullied, you
Yeah.
know? So I
So you're
started,
fighting back.
I was fighting back. I was
Okay.
punching people back. And some people respected that, and I misunderstood that as, ooh, this is something likable. Because
Yeah.
I was just looking to be liked.
Yeah.
Well, these people like me when I fight, so I fought more and I
Gave
fought
you some
more.
power.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then I became the bully, and I sort of, in a very subtle way, entered that world of being a bully. I started getting into drugs, skipping school, stealing cars. This is by the age of 13, 14.
You were into drugs and stealing cars before age 13?
Yes,
Oh
absolutely.
my goodness, okay.
Yeah. And by age 14, I was doing cocaine.
Oh wow.
And then by age 15, it just didn't make sense to be in school anymore. So I felt like, the school system doesn't understand me. Adults don't understand me. And, they were working with whatever knowledge they had
Your
back
parents?
then.
They're
Yeah, my
trying.
parents,
Yeah.
my friends' parents, teachers.
Yeah.
Everyone was basically working with whatever they had. And basically back then, like, nowadays you see so many nonprofits and so much awareness around bullying and drugs and all that. We didn't have any of that back
No.
then, right? So the narrative basically was that adults were telling kids what is right and what is wrong.
Okay.
I wanted somebody to ask me what's going on, not tell me what to do.
Right.
So I felt extremely disconnected to adults.
Yeah.
And so therefore by 15, 16, I dropped out of school and said, this is not for me.
So at the age of 15, when you're doing cocaine, stealing cars, and doing all the sorts of things that you should not be doing, right,
Yeah.
as a young child,
Yes.
trying to hopefully make a better life for themselves, where were you getting the money to pay for drugs? Because that's an expensive habit.
Yeah, so as I dropped out of school, I just got deeper into that world.
Okay.
Because everyone needs a sense of community, whether they know it or not, or whether they
You need a
consciously
gang.
do it or not.
You
That's
need
right.
people.
That's
Yep.
right. So I started hanging out with people that were in that world. So I started getting into gang-related activities,
Right.
which included selling drugs, getting into home invasions, selling guns. It went really deep. By the time I was 20, 21, I was deep into doing home invasions and selling guns
Wow.
and selling suitcases of guns. It got really, really bad. And there was a lot of money in it. So that's where the money came from. But it
Yeah.
wasn't for drugs.
Yeah.
It was just that, for me personally, every person in that gang-related world that I was in had a personal, hidden, sort of unconscious motive,
Right.
right? I mean, if it was conscious, we wouldn't do it.
Right.
For me personally, it was that I wanted a sense of belonging. I just felt like I didn't have that.
Right.
So I was so unconscious of what kind of behavior and actions that was producing, what
Yeah.
kind of harm that was producing for other people.
Right.
Because I was so busy looking for that sense of belonging, all my attention was there.
Yeah.
So if you liked me,
Yeah.
I would do anything for you because you like me, even
Right.
if you tell me to do bad things.
Right. It's that sense of loyalty, but displaced, obviously.
Yes.
How comfortable are you talking about instances that happened in that time?
I can talk about instances. I have talked about this a lot. It's out there.
Yeah.
And I've learned to not include dates.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah. I want things to go well for you, because I can see you've changed your perspective, and you're paying it forward by helping other people. But at the same time, I think it'd be helpful for our viewers to know, because as I said earlier in the program, you look very polished, and what you say and how you look doesn't match up, right? Because you don't look like a thug, you don't look like a gangster, but that is something that's part of your history. So when you talk about home invasions and selling guns, and without incriminating yourself, if you can give a little bit more idea around what that involved, I guess.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, Sonia, because there are always two parts, I find, through my reflections and what I've learned, especially in the last 9 years of being a coach and being coached. And the two parts are, there's a visible part, which is behaviors and actions, right?
Okay.
And then there's an invisible driver behind it, the emotions and the motive and the inspiration, whether it's a dark inspiration or a light one. And I found that when somebody is not really paying attention to the invisible part of it that's driving the visible, then that visible part of it is more likely to be negative. It's more likely to be dysfunctional, which is where I was.
Right.
Right, so we're doing home invasions and selling guns. That's a big, huge part of it. Like, there was a lot of violence involved, and there's so many incidents. The driver was that I was emotionally disconnected from myself. I was so numb.
Yeah.
So it didn't really matter what kind of things I got into, because I wasn't connected with my inner self, so to speak.
Right.
And
You were
so
lost.
I was lost, yeah, that's a great word. You know, I was a lost soul, sort of, my mind was lost.
Yeah.
And I feel, because I work with youth right now too, as just voluntary, I feel that needs to wake up within people. I work with people in the corporate world too. That also needs to wake up with people in the corporate world, you know?
Yeah.
And that's it. That's what's driving the behavior. So the behavior, in other words, is a downstream consequence of something that's more upstream that you need to look at, or everyone needs to look at within themselves.
Yeah.
And it's more subtle and more invisible, and it's personal. So people don't want to look at it. They don't really want to look at it.
Right.
But that's where change occurs.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, you know, all those behaviors came from being disconnected, from being emotionally numb, from being unintelligent emotionally. Emotional
Right.
intelligence is a very important thing for a human being.
Yeah. When you're in that type of a situation, I mean, your parents, I mean, they came here to improve your life.
Yeah.
They had no idea the course that your life would take. What kinds of things do you think parents, you know, now with your perspective, what kinds of things do you think parents can do, or how can they be more aware of their children's decisions or what they're into, you know?
Yeah, another great question. I've spoken with a lot of people in the community, whether I do after speeches or in interviews or just speaking with them, you know, in dialogue. One of the most common things I see is that still there's a big residue of what I experienced, and what I mean by that is parents really like to tell their children what to do.
Yes.
This is right, this is wrong, do this, don't do that. It doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work. You want to get in touch with your child
Yeah.
on a friendship level.
Right.
And as weird as that sounds, friendship is the highest form of any relationship, right? If I think of my friends, I don't go to my friends because I need something. I go there because I like them. I want to hang out with them.
That's
So
true.
there's a connection there
Right.
that's really mutual.
Right.
You're the parent, they're the child, yes. But don't always be the parent, right? Be willing to be a friend.
Right.
Share with them your struggles so you're not seen as some higher superiority. You're also human. You've had your struggles. Share with them, so they can go, oh, okay, I'm safe to share mine because you shared yours, and they will open up. And that's an indirect, friendly way, a gentle way to open somebody up.
Right. To show that you're human.
Exactly.
You're all human.
Yes. Yeah. So that would be a number one thing. The second thing is, I would say refrain from telling them what to do and what not to do especially in the area of drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because the more and more I've seen that people take drugs and alcohol as medicine. They're not actually wanting to harm themselves. They're already hurt, and this is helping them.
So they're coping.
Yes, they're coping.
Okay.
And one has to understand that, because it's almost like saying, you know, don't take your schizophrenia medicine.
Right.
That's harmful. No, they're taking that to help them.
Right.
So we want to help find the root
Right.
of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the number one thing they're doing is that they're already hurt, and this is helping them. So we want to take a look at the hurt, not what they're using as a coping mechanism.
Got it. So they're taking that alcohol or the drugs as a Band-Aid
Yes.
to mask the problem. But the
Yes.
problem itself is what you're trying to get at, to help them
Exactly.
not have to take any substance abuse help.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
And then the last thing is, we got to stop looking at drugs and alcohol from our view,
Okay.
right? So if you want to help somebody who's taking drugs and alcohol, you want to take a look at it from their view.
Right.
That's the number. We know drugs and alcohol is bad,
Yes.
and we're trying to impose that belief upon them.
Right.
It's not landing, because to them it's good. It's helping
Right.
me. You're telling me it's bad. I'm not going to come to you for help. I'm going to go to people that are telling me it's good.
That's a novel concept, actually.
Yeah,
To look
and
at
it
them
helps.
through their perspective.
Exactly.
Because it would be a completely different perspective, because
It
they
would be
want
a
that alcohol.
Completely different conversation. It's
So
more
how do we do
gentle and
that?
curious.
How do we do that then?
Well, the first thing is to understand they are using it as a medicine, right? And so, for example, hypothetically speaking, if I was to see somebody and see them in pain and hurt, and then see them reach for alcohol, and if I was curious, I would go, oh wow, why are they taking that? And that would be the motive for the conversation.
Okay.
Scenario 2, I see them taking alcohol and drugs. I completely miss the fact that they're hurting. I start imposing my dialogue onto them. That's
Right.
bad. Did you know that messes up your liver? Do you know what that's going to do to your future?
Yeah.
And it just goes over their head, because
Right.
to them, there's a disconnect. I'm taking this to help me. I'm drinking this water to help me.
Right.
You're telling me not to drink water. I'm not going to listen to you.
You're my enemy.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So their walls go up right away. They're shut down.
Yeah.
And what happens from the parent is they get louder and more aggressive.
Yes.
So there's more distance between people, not
Right.
closeness. Closeness is what changes lives, because as I said in the beginning, everyone's looking for a sense of belonging.
Right.
Us imposing beliefs and ideas on people does not provide sense of belonging.
Right. So
It
it's
takes us away
the
from it.
empathy that parents need to show,
Yeah.
and being that friend rather than, that authoritative, you need to,
Yes.
I want you to.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Friendship is so beneficial in any relationship. It's healing.
true.
It's true connection.
It's funny because I think there's an old adage out there that's, I'm not your friend, I'm your parent. But you're saying do the opposite of that and be a friend. Not all the time, but be that safe space for that child to know I'm okay to share things with my
Yes.
parent. That's a good distinction.
Yes,
Okay, so I have a question for you.
sure.
This is just kind of like sidebar, and everything we're talking about, we're just kind of having casual conversation. That's why it's Sanji Galbat.
Right.
So if you're driving, so we all go through the same scenario. We're driving down one of the main drags, and we see there's a homeless person, and maybe they're hunched over, maybe they've got a sign that says anything helps. You know who I'm talking about, right? And we're in our cars, and some of us will be like, oh, shoot, like, I don't want to make eye contact. So then we look down, and we just wait for the light to change, and then we drive. Because we don't want to make contact, because
Yeah.
this person looks dirty, they look like they're doing drugs, and they probably are going to use that money for drugs. So the one stance is that. The other stance is, okay, that person looks like they need some help. Let me just give them $5, and good. So the one person who says, I'm not going to give money, their feeling is, well, if I give that person money, they're going to use it for drugs. And I don't want them to take drugs, so I'm not going to give them money. The other person's like, here's $5, buy whatever you want. If you want to buy drugs or whatever, or food or whatever, great. What is your stance on that?
It's an interesting question. I have a couple of stances, and one might be a little bit thought-provoking.
Okay.
I might be disliked for it, but
Okay.
I'm okay with that. So the first scenario where somebody is looking at the person and going, I don't want to give them money because I don't want them doing drugs.
Right.
Well, who are you to tell them what to do
Okay.
with their lives, is my
Yeah.
stance, right?
Yeah.
And I say that in a bold way, but I mean that with love. And what I
Right.
mean is, we are not that important that we should be telling people what to do. It doesn't matter what they're
That's
doing.
the imposing of my will.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah. The second person who's giving them money is more connected to them. They're more empathetic, they're more curious, they're more open-minded.
Yeah.
And that person is giving the money. Now it's up to that person, the homeless person, to do what they will. But more than giving them money, like I give money to the homeless all the time.
Yeah.
But I have a conversation with them first. Hey, how's it going? Did you eat today? What's going on? How's your day?
Okay.
You see them open up, like,
Yeah.
man, a human being cares about me.
Yeah.
When a person is feeling connection,
Yeah.
they're going to get thoughts that are related to a good feeling,
Yeah.
and they're going to use whatever time after that in goodness, whether that's the next hour, the next 10 minutes, whatever it is.
They'll pay it forward?
They'll pay it forward. They will probably choose something healthier for themselves. They'll share their money, whatever it is. It's going to be
Something
in goodness,
positive.
yeah,
Okay.
because you're helping activate goodness.
Right.
I have seen on East Hastings, I've given people like foot-long subs, and as soon as they get it, they immediately split it and give it to the person next to them. I've never seen a corporate person do that.
Yeah, that's right. Corporate's like, give me another one, I'm going to take it home for
Right,
later.
exactly, yeah. So I think
Interesting.
we have a lot to learn from the humanity that
Yes.
they're exuding from themselves. We need to see that beyond the filters that we have gathered
Interesting.
from society on what they should do and what they should not do.
Yeah.
So I don't particularly have a stance. I mean, there are people out there that you can tell, you can sense that this person is going to be violent with this money
Right.
towards themselves.
Right.
Use your intuition, and that would be the best guide.
Yeah, I've had this conversation before with people, and I always find it interesting, the answers, because my stance was always, well, I would never give them money because they'll use drugs.
Yeah.
Like, that was always my stance. And then I thought, more discussions with friends, I thought, well, if I wanted to eat a box of donuts, which is really bad for my health,
Yeah.
and it activates the same pleasure centers as cocaine, right?
Yes.
We know this.
Yes.
But I'd eat it. I mean, socially, it'd be like, oh, yeah, she just went to Krispy Kreme and had a great time.
Yeah.
But is that even right? So for me to judge someone else and what they're choosing, because I'm choosing something probably just as bad for me.
Yeah.
But it's that judgment of people, I think, that we need to
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So you know what I've found is that every human being has a judgmental mind. We all have an intellect, right? And it's a default design of a human being. So it's part of a human being. It's not a wrong or right thing. It's actually a very useful function. Because to judge whether a car is too close or not to cross the street,
Right.
that's the right use of judgment.
Right.
You go to a supermarket and you see 2 oranges and you can judge which one's good, which one's rotten.
That's
so you're
right.
using it correctly.
Yeah.
To point it to people, you're misusing that function. So somebody has to be educated on their abilities, and then they start using it correctly.
Right.
You know, I'm the same. I've messed it up as you've just told my story.
Yeah.
I went to the other end of spectrum and I was extremely judgmental,
Yeah.
but all of that started with judging myself first. I was extremely judgmental on myself, it poured out on others. I was extremely negative towards myself, it poured out on others.
Right.
So working on yourself really,
Right.
really helps, and that's the only place to look.
Right. So if there is a parent that's going through something where they see that toxic lifestyle
Yeah.
starting to emerge, the best thing to do is connect with your child and to see if there's some sort of a pathway to becoming more of a friend and a safe place. That's the first thing to do.
Yeah, you know, the simplest way is to be curious, not conclusive.
Right.
Don't conclude when you see them doing something or being a certain way.
Yeah.
Don't make a conclusion, be curious. Like, why are you doing this? What's making you do this?
Right.
I'm just curious, I want to learn. That kind of attitude really helps.
Right.
We have to consider that I'm 41,
Yeah.
and when I was younger compared to when the kids nowadays,
Yeah.
the music is different, their influence is different, the school systems is different, their
Social
influence
media.
completely different. Exactly.
Yeah.
Social media has raised them, really.
Yeah.
So we can't impose, it just doesn't make sense. There's no logic there that would make sense that you can teach them what you've learned. You would
Right.
have to learn their way.
Yes.
I'll tell you a really, really quick story if I can.
Please.
I speak into schools, right? I go into schools and share my story and share whatever I've learned with the kids now and then. And the first time I went, I remember I was so insecure because I'd never done it.
Okay.
I'd worked with adults, I'd never worked with kids. So I went with a little bit of preparation and I kind of started speaking. And the kids disconnected like this. And you know how when you're speaking, if you've done speaking events, if
Yeah.
anyone's done speaking events, they'll know that if you're speaking to adults and you're kind of flat and stale, adults will still be polite. They'll just be like, yeah.
Yeah, but
that's
they're
fine."
not, nothing's hitting, but yeah.
Yeah. The kids are like, who's this guy? And they go on their phone while you're speaking. I found that so disrespectful. I got super insecure and I was like, oh my God. So I bombed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I went back home and I reflected on this.
Yeah.
And then I realized that I'm going in there with the same attitude of imposing. I'm just telling them things of what's good and what's bad, what's right and what's
Right.
wrong.
Right.
They don't, I'm just another person that's doing that. They have counselors and police officers and all kinds of people doing that already.
Right.
How can I be different?
Yeah.
So I looked at me
At
to
yourself.
correct, not
Good.
them.
Right.
The next time I went, I said, look, you guys are the experts in your own life. You know better than me what you're facing. You tell me what we should discuss.
Okay.
And from then on, it started to grow. People started to connect. They started to ask questions. They privately emailed me.
Yeah.
They wanted to sit down and talk. They felt safe.
Right.
Because I was willing to learn, not teach.
Yes.
Right? So when we become a student of them,
Yeah.
we start to learn what they're up to.
Right.
Then with our experience and a life experience and advice and trials and tribulations we've gone through as
Yeah.
adults,
Yeah.
we can contribute better.
Yeah, again, empathy. It's
Exactly.
that whole thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when someone is going through this and like maybe when you're at these schools talking to them, maybe there's a child that's listening during that presentation and saying, oh man, like I'm in the middle of this right now. They could reach out to you.
Absolutely. 100%. Yes.
So you are making those changes then for people, to improve their lives at all different ages. So you're talking about corporate, you're talking about students, you're talking about homeless, you're talking about your clients are many different types of
basically the rule is if you're a human being, I'm available.
people. Perfect, yeah.
My business of coaching, I'm usually working with business owners and corporate professionals and senior executives mostly.
Yeah.
In my free time, I'm doing all this volunteer. The people that I work with that are youth,
Yeah.
18 to 24-year-olds mostly. People in trauma that can't afford coaching, people homelessness, social housing, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll do that for free. That's okay.
Right.
And that's my volunteer work. But yeah, if you're a human being and you're struggling, reach out.
That's so
because
nice,
I've been there.
So when you talk about you've been there, how do you get out? Because the perception, I'm nowhere near any kind of gang activity. I've never been. I'm pretty boring. I'm the one that does the presentation and everybody's like on their phone like, oh, she's boring, because I'm not that exciting. But when someone's in that life, the perception on the outside is, oh, to get out of that life, once you're in that life, you can never get out. So that's what we perceive. How did you get out?
Well, how I got out was triggered by unfortunate events, actually. I was so deep into it, and when I was 23 years of age, my parents' house was shot up, and
wow.
they were inside the house, and there were 6 shots fired in the home.
Your parents were in the house?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Are they okay?
Yes, they're fine. I don't
Good.
know to this day how nobody was injured, but 6 shots were fired in the home. And that woke me up. I remember that night going, oh my God, like yesterday I remember being 13, trying to be liked.
Yeah.
Today I'm 23 and this is where I am.
Right.
So that triggered me to reflect back and go, is that really what they brought me to this country for? Like I felt really ashamed of myself, and that turned out to be a good thing. You know, It was used correctly by me to move out of there. But basically, that unfortunate event triggered me to look at why I'm doing this.
Right.
You know, and that's where somebody has to look. Whether it doesn't matter what the outside circumstance might be.
Yeah.
What I have learned from talking to people that are in the gang-related lifestyle, just out of it, cannot see themselves out of it, whatever the case may be, anywhere in the spectrum.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, when you were born as a human being, you were not meant to be a gangster.
That's right.
So whatever you're doing in that world, you're disconnecting from your natural self.
Right.
That's the end of sentence, right?
Yeah.
And I can say that because when you speak to anybody in that world, you'll see that they're not connected to themselves. Their brows are down. If your brows are down, you don't like life. If you don't like life, you're doing something unnatural.
Right.
And you want to start there. And when they start to realize themselves, every human being has intuition, wisdom, a connection to their deeper self, and common sense. And if they're willing to touch that question, throw it back to themselves, their common sense will kick in.
Okay.
And they will start to realize that there's a much bigger life available and possible for them outside of that. So I always tell people, I never tell people to stop doing drugs. I never tell people they should get out of a gang-related world. It doesn't make sense to me to tell people what to do. They're the experts in their own life.
Right.
I would just say, are you natural? Are you feeling natural? Are you happy? Are you lighthearted?
Right.
Are you happy with your life?
Right.
Do you sleep a dreamless sleep? Do you laugh often?
Right.
Do you have patience? These are the qualities that are natural to a human being.
Right.
I find that people in that world don't have any of those. I did cocaine pretty much every day for 10 years, just to sleep.
Really?
Couldn't sleep.
Wow, you'd think it'd have the opposite effect.
Yeah, I mean it does until you get to the 3rd day, and then your body shuts down. The thoughts are so loud, they're so negative, and they're so abusive.
Right.
Just thoughts are so abusive
Negative,
that you want to numb that out in order to sleep. So that's where I was. So that's the basic thing. If you're not living a natural life, you might want to look at that.
So, okay, so the perspective of the person is ready to leave that lifestyle perhaps because they're doing reflections on themselves saying, oh, I'm not in a happy spot, I'm not in my natural state of how I want my life to be.
Yes.
So that's their decision to possibly leave. So that's one. What about when the gang's got a hold on you? That scary part of like, oh, if I leave, they'll kill me, they'll kill my family. Does that exist, or is that just some stuff of movies?
No, I think that exists to a degree.
Okay.
I don't think that exists unless you're really involved in a very deep way and you're high up there.
Right.
I have a friend that I go into schools and speak with.
Okay.
He was a founder of one of the gangs, one of the most violent gangs in BC.
Really? Okay.
Red Alert.
Oh, wow.
He got out. He's 3 years out. He was the founder. He wasn't a recruit.
And he was able to leave?
He was able to leave. He was the founder and he left. He left with courage. If you leave by running away,
Right.
You're going to create suspicion. You want to be courageous within yourself first. You want to take it slow, and you want to tell people what you're up to. If you tell somebody that you want to leave, why you want to leave, because you want to be happy, there's nobody in this world that's going to stop you. It doesn't matter if they're a gangster or not.
Right. Yeah.
If you want to leave because you want to leave with their secrets and you're selling them, different story.
Yeah, that's true. No, but that makes good sense. If you're just a respectable, I've just made a career choice that's different than what I'm doing currently.
Yeah.
I'll see you later,
Yeah.
or actually I won't see you later, maybe is more appropriate. But okay, so people can have a way out.
You can absolutely, it's possible. I mean, everything in the world is possible if you do it properly, correctly, slowly, one high quality step at a time.
Right.
You know.
So then after that incident in 2013,
Which one?
the one where the house got shot up,
Well, that was 2004.
2004.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were 23 at the time.
Yes.
Okay, so when that happened, after that happened, you had a realization of this is not what I want. My parents came here to make a better life, and now I must do something different. Where did you go from there?
Yeah, so it was really interesting because I was extremely naive, of course, and I thought, you know what, I'm done with this life. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
But it turns out you just can't walk out.
Right.
And what I mean by that is that you can't walk out because you're used to it. Psychologically,
It's
you're
all
so
you know,
used to
right?
it.
You
Exactly.
become that.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
It's not that somebody's stopping you, it's that you're stopping yourself.
Right.
So the number one hardest thing for me to do was to consider that I've been in this underground world so long, I don't know how to be anything else.
Right.
So I kept trying to get jobs. Like one of the first things I did was, you know what, I'm just going to go get a job.
Yeah.
It will train me to get out.
Right.
And for the next 2 years, I went and got 6 jobs because I got fired each and every single time from each and every single job.
Why would you get fired?
Well, I didn't know how to be. I didn't know how to be civilized. I used to, you know, when a manager tells me what to do, I'll tell her, do you know who I am?
Yeah, yeah,
And they were like, yeah, I'm your employee.
yeah. Get to work.
Get to work. And I'm like, you don't know who I am.
Right.
So the level of arrogance, you know.
Because your lifestyle was more like that rock and roll kind of like,
Yes.
let's have fun. Yeah.
Exactly. And I was like a dominator, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring that into a workplace.
You're trying to
It's just
bully
not
your
gonna work.
employer.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just be real.
It's not
Okay.
going to work.
Okay.
So I kept getting fired. And
Yeah.
then there's other reasons, you know. You're getting drunk all the time. You're doing drugs still because you don't know what to do. You're not going
Right.
to show up for work.
Right.
You're calling in sick all the time.
Yeah.
You know, so you're going to get fired.
Right.
You're late too many times.
Yeah.
You're going to get fired.
Fired.
So all these things matter. So this is why I'm always saying you got to work on yourself first before
Right.
external habits or routine changes.
Okay.
So anyways, that was my sort of journey.
Okay.
But I've always been somebody that just doesn't give up, even if I fail. So I just
Yeah.
thought, okay, I failed, let's do it again. Okay, I failed, let's do it
Right.
again. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
I'm kind of doing that with the gym right now, you know. Go to the gym, some days
Fail.
you don't make it. Yeah, fail.
Get fired.
Fail at the weights.
Yeah. But no, good for you.
But it's like, okay, just do it again, right?
Yeah.
You failed, so what? Do it again. Do
Yeah.
it again, do it again. If you really want it, do it again.
Well, isn't that the thing is that they say that winning is, or every no is a yes, like a no is just a yes waiting or something. There's a saying I've heard.
Yeah, there's many sayings around that. My favorite one actually came from one of my coaches. He said, no is an abbreviation. N-O means next one.
Ah, that's good.
I really loved it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
took it on and went, okay, next one, meaning next try, next
Yeah.
time, next person.
And that's just
No.
like you. You're saying you never give up. You just
Yeah.
keep. So that's
Yeah,
good.
exactly.
I like that one.
Yeah.
So then you applied for jobs. You got fired. This happened several times. And then after that, what did you do?
Yeah, so around 2008, my girlfriend at the time was in university.
Yeah.
And she kind of seen, you know, like, I kept going back to that life, right? I forgot to mention, every time you get fired,
Yeah.
you go back to the familiar. So I
Right.
kept going back to that life.
Okay.
And she kind of seen that, and she said to me, you know, we should get your own business, because that way you can be your own
You
boss.
can't be fired.
You can't be fired.
Right.
I thought that was a great idea, and I see in hindsight now how much more wiser she was than me.
Yeah.
Because basically what she was telling me is, you're so arrogant. You can't last in a job.
Right.
You should get your own business.
Right.
You know,
Interesting.
indirectly. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. So I went into trying to get my own business. And long story short, I ended up working at a Tim Hortons because I really wanted a Tim Hortons.
Okay.
The motive behind wanting a Tim Hortons, this is the funny part. This is one of my biggest insights in life, I think.
Okay.
Basically, my focus in the drug and gang related world was money, right? It's always money. Get more money,
Yeah,
do
it's
whatever
alluring.
to do money.
Yeah.
And it's blind, it's innocent, in other words. Innocent in the way that you just don't know that you've made money your priority over relationships and health and everything else. Money's a priority, this imaginary thing that we're using to
Right.
trade, you know.
Yeah.
So when I wanted a Tim Hortons, I wanted a Tim Hortons for one reason only. It's a cash cow.
Absolutely
Right?
it is. Yep.
I have no passion to serve donuts and coffee all day. I
But
know
the
it's a
money,
cash
though.
cow, yeah.
100%.
So that's why I went after it.
Okay.
I didn't realize that the underlying current was the same, meaning I was still chasing money. I just replaced drug and gang-related lifestyle,
Yeah.
which is shunned by society, by Tim Hortons lifestyle, which is celebrated by society.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So everyone started around me was really proud of me, in a sense. Like, oh, wow, he's changed his life and he's going after this thing.
Yes.
And then I worked at Tim Hortons for 4 years because I really wanted it. So I climbed all the positions from serving coffee to becoming a baker, midnight shift, supervisor, manager, all of that.
Okay.
It was extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Took me about 4 years.
Okay.
But it was extremely humbling because
Right.
you are a minimum wage worker. You're not a gangster,
That's
no
right.
matter what you think of yourself.
Yep.
And you have to participate and learn from that world. And one of the most humbling lessons I learned was at break time at Tim Hortons. When I used to take my break, I used to work with these Filipino ladies.
Okay.
And some of the Filipino ladies there were telling me about how they have holding down 3 jobs and all the money they're getting, they're sending back home.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, look at these people doing honest work. At least they're true to their soul. I don't even have the courage to do that. It really humbled me. I was like, wow, man, I need to wake up, you know?
Yeah.
And that helped me. So I stayed the path, and eventually I became an owner of a Tim Hortons in 2011.
Okay.
And I felt extremely accomplished, as you can imagine, as bleak as my life looked previous to that. I never
Right.
thought I would make it anywhere.
Yeah.
So I was extremely proud of myself. I felt accomplished and had a big achievement under my belt. Everyone around me was congratulating me
Proud of
and
you.
patting my back.
Yeah.
And the place was doing over $2 million a year. So it was like, okay, well,
Wow.
life is good now.
Yes.
And so as I did that, a year or two of being an owner, right? So what they do is you have to sign a 20-year lease with them minimum.
Okay.
I'm like, I'm in, man. 20 years, no problem, right?
Yeah.
My life is set.
Yeah.
Year 2, I'm like, man, there's something missing. I don't know what it is. There's
Okay.
something missing. I did a lot of reflection. I just couldn't figure it out.
Right.
And that's when I started exploring coaching. There was friends of mine that are getting coached.
Right.
And they said to me, you know, we're doing life coaching. I was like, what is that? I've never heard of this. My relationship to the word coaching was sports,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You want to become a Olympic champion, you hire a coach. You want
That's
to become a bodybuilder, you hire a coach.
Yeah.
So I was like, what is that? And they told me, we speak with this guy, and he challenges us, he challenges our beliefs and values, and we have deep conversations instead of a safe container he creates,
Right.
and our life improves. And I was like, well, what are you guys doing? He said, we talk. We have powerful conversations. And I said to him, well, I think it's a scam, man. Because you can talk to your friends or your family
Yeah.
or whatever. I'm
For
not going to
free,
do
like
that.
what? Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah.
And as I laughed at them, I went back to my Tim Hortons, and their lives were getting better. They were fishing and golfing. Their relationships were getting better. They had time for themselves. Their finances never went down. They either remained the same if they wanted or up.
Right.
But their lives were generally getting better, and mine was like work, work, work all the time. I'm at Tim Hortons. I'm managing minimum wage staff. Someone's trying to rob me. I'm doing that. It's a 24-hour restaurant. Someone's trying to fall in the restaurant. Yeah,
All
exactly.
stress.
And I remember specifically the first year I was there as the owner, I seen my parents. They lived 20 minutes away from me.
Okay.
I seen them 10 times that year.
Only.
Yeah, 10 times that year. Birthdays, Christmas, whatever. Let's go eat together. I got to get back to work.
Once a month, barely. Yeah.
And I was so overwhelmed by being in that cycle again of working, 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 that I was drinking so much coffee in the day
Yeah.
and alcohol at night to go to sleep, and
Oh my
then doing
gosh.
it again.
Yeah.
So at one point I went back to my friends and went, hey man, who's that coach guy? Can you help me out and connect me? So they
Right.
connected me. I had to, humble myself. I had to be willing to speak to somebody
Yeah.
and tell
Be
them.
vulnerable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
be vulnerable. That's a
Yeah.
good word. And yeah, I spoke to him, and he basically did the same thing. He created a nice safe container, slowed me down, and he asked me questions that I would have never asked myself because they're difficult.
Right.
And so one of the questions was that, what are you doing this for?
Okay.
Like, what does success mean to you?
Right.
And I remember saying, like, success equals money. We all know that. That's the
Yeah.
definition of success. Next question, please. He's like, no, slow down, Shenan. What does
Yeah.
success mean to you?
Right.
Not what you've been taught it means.
Right.
Right? And that was powerful for me to go, whoa.
Yeah.
I'm riding on other people's beliefs right now.
That's
I don't even know what it means. So I had to reflect back and go, okay, well, does it really mean success? Because my relationships are going down.
Yeah.
I see my parents 10 times a year. My health is going down. I'm eating Tim Hortons all day because
Yeah.
I'm always there.
Yeah.
Is that really what I want to do? And so I started waking up to that, and it was very clear I don't want to do Tim Hortons anymore.
Right.
And I was really confused. I couldn't articulate that, but I knew internally that I just don't want to be here. So I would tell my parents something, for example, I don't want to do this anymore. There's a disconnect. I'm not happy.
Yeah.
And they would go, why? And I'd go, I don't know.
Yeah. And that's
then,
the last thing your parents want to hear,
yes,
because they're
yeah.
like, you should be
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah. And not only should be happy, but they want to see you thrive. They want to see you successful, secure.
Yeah.
And I don't know is just like, oh my God, this guy's going back into I don't know world, you know?
Right.
I could imagine what they would feel. But I knew in me that I didn't want to, and I knew why. I just couldn't articulate it. I didn't have the words yet, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, long story short, by a year or two, I decided I didn't want to do this. I was so strongly just very clear. I don't want to do this for the next 20 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
My coach helped me realize that if you don't make that move right now and
Yeah.
get out, if that's truly what you want,
Yeah.
10 years will go by like this.
Very fast.
Right?
Yeah.
And he was right, because it reminded me of how age 13 to 23 went by for me
So
in a blink of an eye.
Yep.
And so I went, okay, I better do that. And I gave the Tim Hortons back and, broke the lease. And
Yeah.
it was a little bit messy because they don't want you to break the lease.
Right.
But yeah, I gave it up, and I got so impacted by coaching deeply that I went into coaching, and I
Yeah.
started my own business in 2014.
And you're living your purpose now.
I'm living my purpose.
And
absolutely.
you feel that fulfillment that you didn't feel in the business that you were doing.
Oh, within the first 3 months of coaching,
Yeah.
I felt more alive than I ever have in my life, because people in front of me were telling me in tears how much I've helped them.
Wow.
And when somebody says that to you deeply, you're like, my God, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
How do I shape this into my everyday life?
Right.
And yeah, so I hired more coaches to help me with that.
Yeah. So we're pretty much almost at the end of our program, but I do have a question for you. Now, I know that we spoke in English the whole time. And are you somewhat comfortable to speak a little bit in Hindi, just to do a closing and offer your help to the community?
I'm
we do it?
I'm very weak in Hindi, I would say, especially in front of a camera.
Okay. Do you want to maybe try to do a little bit of English and Hindi, maybe a little bit of a mix?
Sure.
Just to kind of let them know that they have hope, because there's a lot of people, we always have, we have a lot of police officers on here, gang task force
Right.
people to tell us, "Apne bachche nu samjhao, this is what you do." But you're actually that bachcha. You're the kid that
Yeah.
grew up in that environment and became now a success story. So I think it'd be good for our viewers to see that if you can do it. So there's a camera on this side here. Look in the camera and tell them whatever you want in any language you want. If you can put some Hindi in there, awesome. If not, you can take it away.
Okay. So I would say to everyone that's involved in a lifestyle that you don't want to, a dysfunctional way of being where you feel disconnected, the first thing you want to do is slow down, and you want to start admitting that to yourself. If you start admitting that to yourself, you will see that there's a underneath honesty that lifts you up. There's an underneath sincerity that bubbles up. It carries us all forward, and it's the best resource. Second thing is, you want to get hold of somebody that you trust and have that conversation with them. And the conversation being, I'm doing something I don't want to. It's very simple, right? It's very straightforward. I'm doing something unnatural to me. I want to do something fulfilling. So that's the second thing. It's a very important step. And the third thing is, keep doing that. And that's one of the hardest steps, because there's going to be so many opportunities that are going to pull you back into the dysfunctional way of being. Because as we all know, habits and behaviors are patterns that keep repeating themselves. So you want to continue doing that. As I mentioned earlier, like I just keep failing my way forward, whether it's going to the gym or whether it's during the career. You want to continue showing up, and continue showing up will help transform you with insight that you'll get. Because, I'm going to use a quote by Rumi, the famous Sufi poet. He says, as you walk, the way appears. If we don't walk, we can't see the way. So we need to continue walking, and then the way appears, and the way appears, and the way appears. We can't calculate the way, analyze the way before walking. You need to start walking, and the way appears. So that would be my advice. And lastly, I'll say that you can always, always, always contact me. I'm always willing to have a conversation, and I'll transparently share anything that will be helpful for you, for free.
Very good. Thank you so much for sharing that message. And for people that are watching, if they do contact you and they do want to speak in Hindi with you, you can manage on the phone with them a little bit.
Yeah, I think that'll be a little bit informal, so I can do that, yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. I know it's very difficult to share all those, pieces of your history that are not as fondly looked upon by society. So thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that with us today.
Thank you for having
so
me,
much.
Sonia.
Yeah, thank you. Alright, ਉਮੀਦ ਹੈ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੇ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਪਸੰਦ ਆਇਆ ਐਂਡ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਵੀ ਸਬਟਾਈਟਲਸ ਲਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਸਕਦੇ ਵੀ ਕੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਅੱਜ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਲਈ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਸੀਗਾ ਸੋ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਐਵਰੀ ਟਾਈਮ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜੁੜੋ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੋਨੀਆ ਵੈਸਟ ਵਿਲ ਸੀ ਯੂ ਅਗੇਨ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਟਾਈਮ